Part 1. The Invisible Daughter. I don't think I realized I was the lesser daughter until I was maybe 6 or 7. Before that, I just thought I was bad at everything. I thought maybe some kids were just born wrong, too loud, too quiet, too selfish, too needy. I figured that must have been me. My sister Amanda was 3 years older. My parents called her their miracle baby. She was born after years of trying, and I came just 15 months later. A surprise, my mom used to say, but never with a smile. Looking back, the signs were all there. The birthday cakes always had to be chocolate fudge because Amanda liked it, even though I cried every year because I hated chocolate. My parents would look surprised. "Oh, honey, really? We forgot," even though I told them every year. Amanda's trophies lined our hallway. My art, stuffed in drawers. Amanda could scream at me, slap me, call me names, and somehow it would be my fault. But if I said anything remotely critical of her, the world stopped turning. I learned early that fairness was not a rule in our house. It was a privilege Amanda owned and I had to earn, and never did. When we got older, Amanda changed. She grew bitter and sharp, especially when people didn't like her the way they used to. She lost friends in middle school, every one of them, and when I made friends, that's when she turned on me completely. She told our parents my friends were bad influences. They believed her. My mom would sigh and say, "Why can't you be like Amanda and just enjoy family time?" And my dad, he once grounded me for a week because Amanda said she felt uncomfortable with how much time I spent texting. I didn't even have a phone. What saved me, weirdly enough, was my extended family. Cousins, aunts, people who lived nearby, and saw through the perfect girl facade. I remember one time at a family BBQ, I was probably 10, and my cousin Lana invited me to a movie. I told her I wasn't allowed. She asked why, and I was just a kid. I said, "Because Amanda doesn't have friends, and I'm not allowed to have them either." That spread like wildfire. I got in so much trouble. I was grounded for a month, but I swear to you it was worth it. Something cracked after that. I started getting more freedom, not much, but enough to breathe. Still, Amanda made sure I paid. She switched schools, probably because of the embarrassment. And when she came back with new friends, they weren't any better. Her mean streak sharpened into something cruel. Her friends bullied me right in front of my parents. They laughed while I cried. My parents called it light teasing. I never invited anyone over again. By high school, I had learned the rules. Keep your head down. Don't bring joy into the house. It'll get taken. Don't look too pretty. Amanda will say you're doing it to show her up. And definitely don't fall in love. But I did. His name was Ryan. He wasn't perfect. He was moody, had this detached coolness I mistook for depth. But he liked me. Me. I was 16 and hungry for someone to see me. I didn't tell my parents, of course. But Amanda saw us together one day, and that night she showed up in a silk robe, her idea of seductive, I guess, and tried to flirt with him. I wasn't there, but Ryan told me later that she talked about how hard it was being my sister and how he deserved better. He left, found me, told me everything. Guess who my parents believed? Amanda said he flirted with her, and she refused him because she'd never hurt me like that. My parents banned me from seeing him. They said he was a pervert and manipulative. They said Amanda had such a good head on her shoulders, and I should be grateful she was looking out for me. I wasn't shocked, but I was done. I didn't fight. I just let it fall apart. That became the theme of my teen years. Relationships quietly disintegrating under the weight of Amanda's lies. She pulled the strings, and my parents danced to her rhythm. When I got good grades, they didn't care. "Of course you got an A," they'd say. "You're the smart one." No cake, no congratulations. When Amanda got a B, balloons, dinner, Facebook posts, So proud of our girl. I stopped bringing my report cards home. College came. Amanda got into a second-tier school. Barely. No scholarships. Nothing impressive. But my parents still threw a party for her. Paid her tuition without question. Bought her dorm supplies like she was heading off to Yale. When it came time for me to graduate, my mom pulled me aside. I still remember the kitchen light flickering above her head. "We spent so much on Amanda," she said, "so we can't really do the same for you. You'll need to work. Maybe after Amanda finishes, we'll see about college." She said it like she was offering me a warm hand, a kindness. Then she added, "If you want to live here, you'll have to pay rent and your own expenses." I nodded. I didn't even flinch, and that broke her. She started crying, like I had betrayed her. Like my calm was a knife to the throat. She expected a fight. She wanted me to scream to make a scene so she could call me ungrateful. But I'd grown past that. I thanked her. "For your honesty," I said. "I appreciate it." And I walked away. What they didn't know was that I had already applied to schools. I had studied my ass off. I had no social life, no distractions, just ambition, desperation, and the knowledge that nobody was coming to save me. And guess what? I got a scholarship. Not to Harvard or anything, but a solid university, full ride, tuition, housing, the works. I posted about it on social media before telling my parents. It was the only way I could ensure they wouldn't sabotage it. I even tagged them. "Thanks, Mom and Dad, for believing in me." It was my insurance policy. They couldn't say no now, not without looking like monsters. At first, they pretended to be proud. Amanda must have gotten in their heads because soon after, their tone changed. "Are you sure you want to go?" they asked. "College is hard. Amanda's struggling, and she's smarter than you." I didn't bite. I packed my bags and left. And for the first time in my life, I exhaled. Part 2. The flame beneath my skin. Rage. College was my escape, but it didn't erase the pain. It simply moved it out of view. A well-placed rug over a jagged hole. I was free, but I was still bleeding. I didn't go no contact with my parents right away. I couldn't. There was still that small, aching voice inside me, hoping they'd see me now, hoping they'd say, "We were wrong. We're proud of you." So I called, sent holiday cards. I went home for Christmas the first year thinking maybe the distance had softened them. It hadn't. Amanda was still the axis of their world. I was still the grain of sand in their shoe. That Christmas, I brought a pie I baked from scratch. My professor had given me the recipe. Amanda brought a half-burned batch of cookies from a box mix and got applauded like she'd made a gourmet cake blindfolded. My pie wasn't even opened. "You're always trying to show her up," my mother whispered when no one was looking. "She's your older sister. Let her have something." Something? She had everything. But I said nothing. Rage in our house was a sin, but only when it came from me. I remember lying awake in my childhood bed, staring at the ceiling fan and feeling like the walls were pushing in. I wanted to scream, to rip through every false narrative they'd spun about me. I wanted to stand in the kitchen and shout, "I'm not the problem." "You are," but the words choked me. I went back to school and didn't visit again for a year. College was a gift, but it didn't make me whole. I'd been trained too well to stay small, to doubt every good thing. I kept my head down, got good grades, worked 2 jobs, and avoided men entirely. Amanda had infected that part of me. Every time someone flirted, I felt the phantom pain of betrayal, that sick memory of her fake tears and my parents' judgment. But loneliness has its own gravity. I was 23 when I met Michael. We worked in the same building. He was in IT, and I worked part-time in admin while doing grad school at night. He had this way of looking at people like he really saw them, Like he wasn't afraid of the truth. I tried to push him away. At first I laughed too loud at his jokes, then ignored his texts. I told him I was too complicated, that I had family issues. He smiled and said, "Complicated people are the most honest." He didn't flinch when I told him about Amanda, about the ruined relationships, about the way my parents always twisted things. "You weren't the broken one," he said. "You were the scapegoat. That's different." I'd never heard that word before. Scapegoat. But when he said it, something in me cracked wide open. Michael wasn't just a boyfriend. He was a mirror. The first one that didn't distort my reflection. So when we got serious and started talking about marriage, I hesitated. Not because I didn't love him, but because I knew what was coming. My parents would find a way to ruin it. And Amanda, she'd try to steal it. Michael knew he didn't need convincing. "We can do it our way," he said. "Just us. Courthouse, Europe honeymoon, no drama." I almost said yes, but something held me back. It wasn't revenge, not yet. It was grief. There was a part of me still mourning the wedding I'd never have, the loving family, the father walking me down the aisle with tears in his eyes, the mother fixing my veil. I wanted to believe I could have at least a piece of that. So we decided to host the wedding in my hometown, not for them, but for the dream I hadn't quite buried. We sent out save the dates. Amanda didn't respond. My parents said they'd be supportive, but only if they could help. I knew that meant control, so we were careful. We chose the venue ourselves, paid deposits quietly, told them as little as possible, but they demanded to meet Michael. I didn't want to. My stomach turned at the thought, but Michael insisted. "Let them show us who they are," he said. "Better now than later." I agreed on one condition. They'd never be alone with him. Michael laughed. "They won't get the chance." He wore a wire. Okay, not technically a wire, but close enough. A high-end audio recorder in his pocket, just in case. I waited at home, pacing, palms slick with sweat. I imagined Amanda batting her lashes, my mom serving tea with fake sweetness, my dad asking pointed questions like an FBI agent. Michael came back 2 hours later, his eyes wild. "Babe," he said, breathless, "you won't believe what they want." He sat me down, took my hands. "They want Amanda to walk down the aisle first in a wedding dress." I laughed. I actually laughed. It sounded like a bark, like something feral. But he was serious. "They said it's not fair for a younger sister to marry first," he said. "So they want her to have the experience, the dress, the photos, a cake at your wedding." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there trembling. It was like all the years of quiet disrespect had fused into this moment. All the slights, the gaslighting, the punishments, all wrapped up in one final slap in the face. Amanda would literally walk my aisle. I felt the rage rise, hot, dizzying, like blood in my ears. And yet, even then, part of me expected it. Like the scab they'd spent my whole life picking had finally split wide open. But I didn't spiral because Michael smiled. "Let's give them what they want," he said. "Let them think they're winning." That's when the rage became something else, not destructive, but focused. "Let's burn this house down." Together, we started planning. Part 3, Hope with Sharp Edges. Hope. After Michael and I agreed to play along with my family's twisted idea, the strange thing was, I started to feel powerful, not joyful, not free, but alert. Like for the first time in my life, I was stepping into the room with a flashlight instead of just being lost in the dark. Michael called it strategic compassion. I called it war with a smile. We pretended to go along with their plan. Michael went back to my parents with that diplomatic charm he's so good at, told them he didn't agree with the idea personally, But hey, maybe if it made Amanda feel special and preserve family peace, he could make it work. He said I was emotional and controlling, that if we sprang the plan on me at the last minute, I'd go along with it to avoid a scene. They ate it up. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry when Michael told me that Amanda literally skipped around the room with joy after he said it, like she was a flower girl in her own little fantasy. He kept playing the part, sympathetic son-in-law, poor guy caught between a controlling fiancé and her loving, misunderstood family. And of course, Amanda started texting him. We let her. I replied to some of her messages from his phone pretending to be him, cold, vague, slightly annoyed. We wanted her to believe she had a shot, that he might come around, that I was the only thing standing between them. You might be wondering why go so far? Because finally, I wasn't the one being toyed with. We decided to accept their help paying for the wedding, but only on our terms. Michael started working them like a violin. They wanted us to pick cheap menu options. He'd agree in front of them, then take Amanda back later and let her taste the upgraded dishes. Oh, he'd sigh, if only we weren't trying to be considerate about your finances. We totally get the duck confit. Cue Amanda's tantrum. Cue my parents caving. Same with the flowers. Same with the music. Same with everything. Every time Amanda wanted to one-up me, they footed the bill for the things I actually wanted. It was like stealing from them in plain sight with their permission. There was this one moment I'll never forget when Amanda told Michael that I didn't deserve a beautiful wedding because I was just going to ruin it with my mood. She said I'd probably break down crying during the vows because I'm so emotionally unstable. Michael came home and told me. I didn't cry. I laughed, like really laughed, for maybe the first time since I was a child. This woman, this sister who had made my entire existence a test of endurance, thought she still had power over me, and she didn't even realize she was financing her own undoing. That's what hope felt like for me. Not light, not freedom, but the clean breath after you've been choking, the clarity that comes with truth, the slow realization that maybe you weren't crazy all those years. Maybe the pain made sense after all, and maybe, just maybe, you could shape the ending differently. We kept them off our paper trail. Every meeting was in person, no texts, no emails. We kept Amanda's advances off the record. Any idea they had was fed through Michael and then filtered through our plan. When they asked about my dress, I said I wanted something simple. They brought me a gown that looked like it was pulled from a clearance rack at a bridal shop in 2009. Cheap lace, a weird collar, and puffed sleeves. I said nothing. Michael said he'd see what he could do. Then Amanda suggested that if I picked a dress she didn't like, she'd accidentally ruin it, so I'd be forced to wear the one they picked. Michael pretended to agree. Every time they whispered betrayal, we filed it away like war strategists. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about clarity. Finally seeing them for who they were. Finally believing myself. Even when Amanda tried to flirt with Michael, touching his arm, tossing her hair, fake laughing at his jokes, he played along just enough to keep her believing. I never said you weren't beautiful, he told her once when she cornered him. He told me afterward, his eyes wild with disbelief. She really thinks I want her, that you are the obstacle, not the reason I breathe. I didn't need to hear him say it, but I held on to the words anyway. I guess that's the thing people don't tell you about healing. It doesn't always come from inside. Sometimes it starts when someone loves you so fiercely that their belief in you stitches up what you thought would bleed forever. Michael gave me that. Together we crafted the perfect lie. Amanda would show up the day of the wedding in a white dress, thinking she'd be let in just before I walked down the aisle. That was their plan, to time it so she'd walk first while I was hidden away and couldn't stop it. The guests would see her, the photos would include her, and by the time I came out, the damage would be done. What they didn't know was that we'd hired security, a quiet professional with a list of names and a very specific instruction. Amanda doesn't get in. Period. No matter the dress, no matter the crying. Michael even took some leftover fabric from my actual wedding dress to prove he'd ruined it. He told them I was freaking out, and he had to go calm me down. They believed it. They were so sure they had me. The morning of the wedding, my hands shook as I got ready, not because I was nervous about the ceremony, but because deep down I still couldn't believe they'd try to steal this from me. But then Michael walked into the room, kissed my forehead, and said, "She's about to learn what it feels like to be ignored." Hope, I realized, didn't have to be soft. It could be sharp, fierce, cleansing, and it was finally mine. Part 4. The Ruin We Needed, Heartbreak. The morning of the wedding was bright, quiet, and surreal. My makeup artist kept asking if I was nervous, and I kept saying no. Because I wasn't, not in the way she meant. I wasn't worried about the vows or the crowd or tripping on my dress. I was worried I might still somehow hope. Even after everything, part of me wanted them to come to their senses at the last minute, to call and say, "We're proud of you," to send Amanda in a blue dress, to let me have this one moment, just one, without their chaos, without the knife in the back wrapped in family values. But that call never came. Instead, it was silence, which in our world always meant plotting. We had everything rehearsed. Michael's brother, our co-conspirator, stayed by my side until the signal. Our bridesmaids had been instructed to go out when my father gave the cue. He was still under the impression that Amanda would walk first. And at the door of the venue, waiting like a knight in a navy blue suit, stood our security guard. Tall, calm, and with a clipboard in hand, he was the only thing standing between my sister and the spotlight she believed she'd earned. My heart was thudding as the time drew near. The music was already cued, the guests were seated. My father stepped forward to take his place, expecting to meet Amanda in her stolen glory. But instead the doors opened, and it was me. The moment my heel hit the floor, I saw it on his face. Confusion, panic. His head twisted to look behind me, as if Amanda might still appear and fix this error. But all he saw was light. He stammered something and left me standing there. The music played on. The murmurs began. Then from behind the crowd, I saw my mother follow him out, her expression tight, her hand clutching her phone. A guest snapped a photo. Another whispered. It spread like wildfire. Amanda wasn't coming. Michael's friend, the one planted in the pews as a decoy, turned to me and said loudly, "He told you it wasn't supposed to be you, didn't he?" And God help me, I nodded. I didn't have to fake the tears. They came anyway, not just from the drama, but from the heartbreak of realizing that even here, even now, my father had abandoned me at the altar of my sister's ego. I took a deep breath, straightened my spine, and walked alone. And from the back of the room, Michael's dad, bless that man, stood up and rushed forward to offer me his arm. It was clumsy and chaotic and nothing like I had dreamed, but it was real, and somehow that made it beautiful. We exchanged vows while my parents were outside trying to convince a security guard that they had every right to hijack my wedding. According to Michael, who had someone filming the whole debacle, Amanda showed up 5 minutes after the music started. She wore a wedding dress that looked, well, not quite bridal. It was more Vegas elopement than elegant. Hair curled into ringlets, makeup thick with expectation. When the guard told her she wasn't on the list, she laughed. "I'm the bride's sister," she said, like that was a magic password. He didn't blink. "Doesn't matter, you're not on the guest list." "My parents are inside," she screamed. "They aren't on the list either," he said deadpan. My dad tried the classic threats. Legal action, social embarrassment. "Do you know who I am?" None of it worked. The guard was unshakable. He even offered to call the police on them. Then the planted guest, our decoy friend, stormed outside and shouted at Amanda, accusing her of trying to ruin her own sister's wedding. People followed. Phones came out, faces turned. My sister, she lost it, kicked off her heels, collapsed on the gravel, screamed like a toddler denied candy. My mother stood over her, frozen. My father paced like a caged dog. Guests started arguing. A few shouted. Someone asked if this was a prank. Others whispered, "Disgusting, cruel, what kind of parents?" Meanwhile, inside, Michael and I said, "I do." And for the first time in my life, I did something big and beautiful. And no one took it away from me. The rest of the evening unfolded like a strange dream. I could tell people were shaken. Many didn't know what to say. Some guests left and came back. Others hovered near me with soft eyes and stronger hugs. There was a tenderness in the air, not pity, but respect. Like they saw me now. Michael kept me steady. Every time I felt the weight of it, he cracked a joke, whispered a compliment, or kissed the top of my hand like I was something sacred. At one point, his brother told me that was the most poetic takedown I've ever seen. And maybe it was, but it didn't feel like victory yet. Not really. The heartbreak didn't come from what they tried to do. It came from the truth I could no longer deny. They had never loved me. They loved the idea of family. They loved Amanda's story. They loved control. But me, I was a supporting character they didn't bother learning the lines for. It hit me hardest when I looked over and saw an empty seat where my father should have been, where my mother could have been. They missed my vows, they missed the dance, they missed the first real smile I'd worn in years, and the most painful part, I don't think they even cared. Michael squeezed my hand. "You okay?" he asked. And I was. I wasn't shattered or hysterical. I was just sad. Not because I lost something, but because I finally accepted that it was never there to begin with. Part 5. The Unshackling. Liberation. We left for our honeymoon the morning after the wedding, barely having slept. Not because we were buzzing with newlywed bliss, though some of that was there, but because Michael couldn't stop laughing. She threw herself on the gravel like she was auditioning for a soap opera. He kept saying, shaking his head, "Baby, that man is still probably hearing her shrieks in his nightmares." I smiled, a tired one, but real, because the absurdity of it all, the drama, the chaos, the collapse of their entire plan wasn't just poetic, it was liberating. For once, I wasn't stuck in reactive silence. I hadn't been blindsided. I had acted. I had anticipated, prepared, executed. With Michael's help, yes, but still, me. The girl who used to cry silently behind bedroom doors now had security guards and contingency plans. And even though I still felt the weight of everything, I was no longer chained to it. The airport was quiet at dawn. Just us, our suitcases, and the cool hush of people in transit. We ordered coffee. Michael checked his phone. "She texted again," he said casually. I didn't even ask who. I already knew. Amanda had sent me a string of deranged, rambling messages. Most of them didn't make sense. Accusations, delusions, maybe even projections. But what stood out, what glittered like a shard of glass, was the line where she accused me of stealing her life. She said I humiliated her, that I tricked her, that I'll get what's coming to me. Michael raised an eyebrow. Should I frame it? He wasn't joking. He wanted to literally print the message, frame it, and hang it in our apartment. I didn't say no. A few hours later, we were on a plane to Italy. The message is still coming. My parents tried to call repeatedly. Michael told me not to answer. We need a paper trail, he said. Let them show the world who they are. Instead, we gathered all their voicemails, texts, missed calls, and Amanda's increasingly unhinged messages, and posted a carefully worded announcement in the family group chat. It was simple, calm, devastating. Michael wrote it. Dear family, we regret to inform you that we are currently being harassed by my sister's name and our parents. Their actions before, during, and after our wedding were deeply disturbing and meant to hurt my name. Attached are screenshots of messages and missed calls for transparency. Please do not share our location. Please do not enable this behavior. And please do not contact us unless it is in support of our well-being. We are beginning our marriage in peace. We hope you will respect that. Michael and my name. The responses trickled in. First, silence. Then a few cautious messages from extended family, cousins, an aunt, one uncle. We had no idea. I'm so sorry. She's always been like this, hasn't she? One cousin texted, watching your dad walk out of the ceremony like that, it was like something snapped in me. I finally saw them. It was strange, this ripple effect. Like by refusing to play my role, I had broken the fourth wall of a family play we'd all been stuck in. Everyone had pretended not to see the dysfunction. But now, there was no pretending, not with cameras, witnesses, and screaming in the gravel. Back in Italy, Michael and I walked through cobbled streets hand in hand, exploring old cities, sipping espresso, eating slow meals. For once, no one was looking over my shoulder. No one was twisting my story. My life felt untouched. I cried in Venice, not because I was sad, but because I was finally free. Michael held me as I sobbed against the cold stone of a bridge, the canals below glittering in moonlight. You did it, he whispered. You cut the cord. It didn't feel triumphant. It felt like mourning, because liberation, as beautiful as it is, requires sacrifice. And I had finally completely let go of the idea that I could ever be their daughter in the way I had longed to be. They would never say sorry. They would never say, you deserved better. They would never love me in a way that healed. And I was done waiting. That trip was a baptism. Every city, every meal, every laugh was a layer of armor I never knew I needed. I watched Michael light up when I spoke Italian badly. I watched strangers treat me with more kindness in a single day than my own parents had in years. One night over wine and tiramisu, I told him, they don't get to narrate my life anymore. He smiled. Babe, they never did. You just forgot you were the author. Part 6. When the sun finally came, healing. Coming back from our honeymoon felt like stepping into a new version of my life. Not a perfect one, not a storybook ending, but a quieter one. A life I finally recognized as mine. The emails and calls stopped, not because they suddenly respected boundaries, but because Michael had taken legal action. He sent a formal cease and desist to my parents and Amanda. It wasn't about threat, it was about clarity, about naming what they were doing, harassment, about refusing to play their games in the shadows. They backed off, and just like that, my world went silent. At first, it was disorienting. No daily anxiety spikes when the phone buzzed. No passive-aggressive messages. No Amanda weaving herself into the background of every milestone. Silence, it turns out, can be both terrifying and beautiful. I started therapy, real therapy, not just talking around the pain, but digging into the rot. My therapist was a quiet, perceptive woman named Beth who, in our first session, asked me, "What did you want your parents to say more than anything?" I didn't even hesitate. "I see you," I said. "I believe you. You were never too much." She nodded. "Say it to yourself every day. Say it like your life depends on it, because in many ways it does." So I did. At first it felt ridiculous, looking in the mirror and talking to myself like some self-help cliche, but eventually it started to feel less fake. And then somehow it started to feel true. Michael helped, he always did. But more than his love, what healed me was the space he gave me to rebuild. He didn't try to fix it. He didn't dismiss the mess. He simply stayed close and steady as I grieved the family I never really had. We made new traditions. Christmas was just us and a small group of friends who had quietly become chosen family. We made cinnamon rolls from scratch, even burned a few. We drank spiced wine and watched terrible holiday movies. And not once did anyone compare me to Amanda. I got a job at a small design firm. Nothing flashy but fulfilling. I worked with people who respected me, who asked about my weekend and meant it, who praised my work without caveats or comparisons. One afternoon, my phone lit up with a message from my aunt, my mom's sister. I just wanted to say, I always knew something wasn't right. I didn't know how bad it was. I'm sorry. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just felt something inside me settle. Maybe not everyone had been blind. Maybe some people had seen. Even if they were too scared to say it at the time, maybe I hadn't been invisible after all. Amanda moved out eventually. I heard through a cousin that she quit her job and moved to another city. She's trying to start fresh, they said. Good. I hope she does. I don't want her life to fall apart. I just want mine to stay whole. My parents, I still haven't spoken to them. There are days when the silence aches, usually around birthdays or when the seasons change. There's something about early spring that makes me remember all the Easter baskets Amanda got with extra candy while mine always had too much sugar. But then Michael walks into the kitchen, kisses my temple and says, "You okay, sunshine?" And I remember, I'm not that little girl anymore. I'm not begging for crumbs of love. I'm not auditioning for a role in their story. I'm writing my own. And it's quiet and a little scarred and wildly imperfect. But it is mine. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, like your voice never mattered, then I hope this story speaks to you. And if it did, consider subscribing. We're telling stories that cut deep, but lead somewhere real. If you've ever been scapegoated, silenced, or made to feel like you were too much, this channel is for you. Subscribe for real confessional stories about family, healing, and reclaiming your voice. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next emotional story drop. What part of her story hit you the hardest? Share in the comments. We read every one.